Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Justin Wolf from Wolf Customs, and I get asked all the time, what is my favorite knife? Well, this question I usually try to avoid unless it's on my Facebook group. I try to avoid this question on my YouTube channel, quite frankly, because it usually causes a lot of controversy. But considering how much or how often I'm asked this question, I decided to go ahead and shoot this video and show exactly what my favorite knives are. Now, I'm going to show my favorite knives in different categories because I don't have a one specific favorite knife, okay? And not only am I going to show it in categories, I'm going to show a low end of my favorites and then a high end of my favorites. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's start with folders, okay? My favorite low-end folder is this right here. It's an Open L. These knives are very cheap, very inexpensive, but very high quality. This particular knife was gifted to me by my friend Travis Henry, Survive Without, and I have grown quite fond of this little knife. These things have a locking mechanism on them. You just twist that part right there and it will lock that blade closed. Or once the knife itself is open, you can just again twist and it locks the blade in place. Now, these do come in carbon steel and also stainless. But I'm here to tell you, these nice thin blades on this knife gets absolutely razor sharp. And like I said, for the money, I honestly don't think that you can beat one of these guys right here. This is my favorite folding knife as far as low end goes. Now, my favorite folding knife when it comes to a high-end knife isn't really necessarily a high-end knife. I just kind of consider it a high-end knife because it's a little bit more expensive than your average folder. And that is quite simply my Leatherman 300. Now, are there better Leathermans out there? Maybe. It just kind of depends on what it is that you're looking for. How big are you needing it? What are you needing it for? Everything else. This Leatherman is on me every single day. And I'm here to tell you, these blades, I'm not entirely sure what the material is that they're made of, but they hold a fantastic edge and again are razor sharp. Great, great knife. And the reason why these are my favorite of the high-end knives is quite simple. It does everything. In my line of work, this multi-tool comes out and I use this multi-tool at least 30 to 40 times every single day. I have had this particular 300 I think 2 years now, maybe 2.5. I cannot remember exactly when the 300 replaced the core, but when the 300 replaced the core is when I got this one. So it's been 2 years at least. It's never failed me. It's never broke or anything. And I will never have another Leatherman until this one fails, until this one breaks. At that point, I will replace it with another one. Now that brings us to a small fixed blade knife. Commonly referred to an EDC, but of course these can also be an EDC. So let's just refer to it as a small fixed blade knife. My favorite small fixed blade knife, as far as a cheap, the Mora Companion. Okay, you guys have seen this in countless of my videos, I'm sure, especially my earlier ones. and I absolutely love this knife. 1095 carbon steel, nice Scandinavian grind. These knives come with absolute crap sheaths, and the spines are absolutely horrible. But they're 12 bucks. I mean, 12 bucks for the quality of the steel, the nice rubberized grip handle, and the absolute razor sharp edge that these things come straight from the factory. You cannot beat this price. You can't beat the knife. They're amazing knives, hands down. Now, as far as my favorite high-end small knife, you guys see all the time, and that is my STKR Scout. My good friend Michael Pryor makes these knives, and I absolutely love this knife. It's 01 tool steel. Fantastic knife. Fantastic knife. Like I said, you can see this knife, as well as most of these knives, in at least one of my videos. Now, another knife that I'm going to talk about is a smaller version. Is a knife that I don't actually own, but I have had the pleasure of using it. And at this very moment I have one in my possession because I am making a sheath for it. And that is the Mako. These knives are made from my good friend Joe Honeycutt from Primal Edge Knives. This is actually his wife's knife, and I do believe this is the very first one ever made. Now, the one that I got a chance to use was the second one ever made. That knife I bought from Joe, and I gifted it to one of my really good friends. And like I said, I've had the opportunity to use it, and I fell in love with this Mako. And the only reason I didn't personally purchase one is because I had my Scout. You can see they're roughly the same size. So they're really at the point, or at that time, there really wasn't a need for me to have that. But it still has its place. Now, as far as steel goes, this is also 01 tool steel. Very good steel, very great sharp spine, and Joe always puts an absolute wicked edge on his Primal Edge knives. So now let's talk about our medium fixed blade knives, or Bushcraft knives per se. My absolute favorite when it comes to low end is the Mora Black. I do believe that Mora hit it right on when they made this knife. This knife has a great rubber handle, 1095 carbon steel. The edge, or the spine, is absolutely, I mean, just very, very sharp. Great 90-degree angle. Throws sparks like absolute crazy. Again, Scandinavian grind. Comes straight from the factory. Absolutely razor sharp. Now, as far as high end goes, this is a knife that I was given the pleasure to make a sheath for it. And as soon as I made a sheath for that knife, I was also given the opportunity to take the knife on a test drive. And I have got to tell you, I have never used a knife like this one. This knife, when it comes to bushcraft or woodwork or anything like that, this thing felt like a lightsaber slicing wood. And ever since I got to use it, I've been on the look for this particular knife because it's very hard to get your hands on it. And that is the Skookum Bush Tool. in my opinion, this is by far the greatest bushcraft knife I personally have ever used. I do believe there's about a 2 to 3 year waiting list for this particular knife. This particular one is in 01 tool steel. The one that I got to use prior to this one was A1 tool steel. Now, there's going to be a lot of people out there that want to know what is the difference between this $40 knife and this several $100 knife. They're both Scandinavian. They're both very similar in blade shape. So here's a couple things, or one thing in particular I'd like to point out. Both are 1/8 inch. Okay? And like I said, they both are Scandinavian grinds. But the difference is from where this grind starts and to the edge. This one is 1/4 inch, or is a 1/4 inch. This one, from the start to the end, is 3/16. Okay? These two knives will never perform the same. It is physically impossible with the difference in the angles. They will never perform the same. You can still, this knife is still absolutely fantastic and performs A+. Okay? I prefer this one just because, like I said, you really won't understand what I'm saying until you actually get to use this particular knife. The moment you get to use it, you will understand exactly what it is that I'm talking about. I am able to get this knife far sharper than any other knife that I've ever owned. And that is why this is my favorite medium-sized or bushcraft knife. And like I said, I also have the luxury of being able to carry a fixed blade knife on my person every single day at work and in my personal life because my state allows for it. So this knife actually has become my EDC knife. So now let's talk about large knives, or commonly referred to as survival knives. A survival knife is kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. It is a knife that can and should it perform small tasks? Yes, it should. Should it split and process wood? Yes, it should. Should it be a tactical knife? Yes, it should. It should do everything. Like I said, it's a jack of all trades, master of none. It's not going to perform like, say, the Skookum when it comes to fine wood crafts. You know, it's not going to perform, you know, as a skinner like other knives. But again, that's not the point of a survival knife. It is a one knife for the rest of your life. My favorite all-time low-end survival knife is the Becker BK2. When I was in the market of getting new knives to replace the current ones that I had, this was one of the very first ones that I had purchased. Not this particular one. This one here is actually brand new, never been used. The one that I had, I completely stripped it all off and everything else because the powder coat is, I hate it. It causes drag and everything else on the wood. So I completely stripped mine off so that way it was smoother and everything else. The handle on these feels great, feels really good in the hand. 1/4 inch thick, 1095 carbon steel. Just an absolute beast of a knife. It's basically a sharpened pry bar. Now, when it comes to high-end survival knives, my favorite, I had two favorites. One was a Fall Niven A1, the other being the PLSK1 by Blind Horse Knives. Both of those knives were fantastic knives. The PLSK1 was my absolute favorite, but as most of you guys know, being the fact that I have the luxury of handling a lot of knives because of my hobby and leather work, I've got to do just that. Handle a lot of knives and use a lot of knives. And so I've gotten to see what knives work for me and what knives do not work for me. And I've taken notes along the way. I have taken knives like the BK2. I have taken knives like the Mora. Knives like the PLSK1. And also kitchen knives like Cutco. I have taken those knives and I created what I felt in my eyes was the perfect survival knife. And again, that was the perfect knife for me. This is going to change for other people. And that is the knife that I designed and had my friend Michael Pryor from STKR Knives make. And that is the Stalking Wolf. Now, I know a lot of people are going to think, well, Justin, you're just saying that because this is your knife and this is going to make you money. And to you people, you're absolutely wrong. I am not taking orders for this knife at the current moment, nor do I know if I ever will be taking more orders in the future. It's kind of in limbo right now. Okay? I'm going to try to continue to take orders for this, but at the moment I'm not making a dime off of these knives. But still, my personal favorite survival knife. Everything about this knife was designed and considered by me. And everybody that has purchased this knife and has used this knife have also fell in love with it. This knife has gone head to head against PLSK1, Fall Niven, Diving Sparrow, and every time this knife came out on top. Doesn't make it the best, makes it the best for me. Also, I did not make this knife out of 1/4 inch. I made it out of 3/16, and this is also 01 tool steel. But the video is not about that knife. I just felt necessary to remind or let everybody know that I'm not taking orders for that knife at the moment, so I'm not making any money by saying it's my favorite. So like I said, when it comes to what is my favorite knife, I do not have a favorite knife. I have lots of knives that work differently for what it is that I'm doing at the moment. Low end and high end. It's your decision whether or not you want to go low and buy a low end knife, and it's your decision whether or not you want to go high and spend your money on a high end knife. There's nothing wrong with either one of those decisions. It is your money. You decide what you want to do with it. Some people, want to spend a lot of money on a knife. That's your decision, and others choose not to. Don't let anybody ever persuade you into doing anything that you don't want to do. You want to spend $40? Spend $40. If you want to spend a couple $100 and wait a couple years, then do that also. So I hope this has answered everybody's questions and what is my favorite knife. and I also hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. As always, have a good one.